Welcome to the Dead Pair Podcast, energized by KL Ammo Gameboy US, with your hosts, Jason Rambo and Sean Alley. Coming in hot with the 411 on all things sporting clays. Your go-to source for information, education, and entertainment, from the new shooter to the seasoned competitor.
Oh, I'm a junkie, man. I want to play with the buttons.
He just likes to throw people under the bus. You're not used to that yet. That's part of the show.
Does your brain hear what your mouth is saying?
Hey, I'm going to call Dave when the podcast is over and ask him what half the words are. Let's rapid fire. Let's do the hot seat. Let's get her done.
Often imitated, but never duplicated. And now, it's showtime!
What's up, Mr. Alley?
Oh, we are here back in the Dead Pair podcast room.
And you left the front door unlocked?
I didn't leave it unlocked. I was actually upstairs, and I think somebody else left it unlocked.
Oh, must be my fault.
Must be your fault.
Well, welcome to the studio, Grace Callahan.
Thank you. Locked or unlocked, I was coming in.
She's like, don't make me get out that Caesar Greenie. I'll knock down that door. So how you doing, Grace?
Awesome. Busy, busy, busy. We're working at the 2022 SCTP Nationals, and it is a nonstop.
Yeah, I was over there earlier today, and it was like chaos.
Yeah, a lot of kids. At that
Organized
shit.
chaos. Chaos.
Organized chaos. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So, hey, Sean, before we get too far into this, we have attorney talk to do.
Well, let's make it happen.
Attorney Talk, brought to you by Score Chaser. Minnesota State at Shooters Sporting Clays is now open, along with Gator Cup at Cherokee Rose. So that's going to be a big one.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
So I know somebody in this room that's going to be attending.
Mm-hmm.
She's giving
the rock star.
She's giving everybody the rock star. So
I forgot they can't see me.
Yeah, they can't see. This isn't video, Grace. So, Grace, we had you on before when we did the Caesar Greenie podcast.
Yes, sir.
Well, we didn't get to. Don't call me sir. Y'all turn around and look for my dad. But we didn't get a chance to really dive into your story on your shooting. And so, tell us a little bit of your background for those that don't know you. Give us some background on how you got to zero to now.
Before ever actually pulling the trigger, I was always just out on the course or in the field with my dad, and I have an older brother. I kind of was one of those why can't I? And it was just I was too young, too small at first. And as soon as my dad felt I was appropriate size and age, I was about probably 9 when I started pulling the trigger on a 20 gauge semi-auto. And really, honestly, it was addiction.
Yes.
It really was. I started in the fields more than I started on the course, but you can kind of see that the fields are a little bit less now, and it's more course than anything. I'm trying to get back into the birds again because that's why we do it, right? That's why I started sporting clays in the first place, to practice my hunting, and I kind of want to go back to my roots a little bit, maybe try some ducks. I've never done ducks. I was always upland.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try it out. But all along the way, I did SCTP myself, so that's kind of why I'm excited to be here. When I was 10 years old was when I first started. I was on the Tri-State Shooters at Griffin and Howe, and I did it until I was 18. So from 10 years old till I graduated high school, I was heavily involved in SCTP. So it's kind of cool to get back here. If it wasn't for SCTP, I wouldn't be where I am today. They really encourage the youth and keep them shooting and make it possible, and it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, so it's basically come full circle for you then.
100%. It's so cool.
You're out there watching the young ones and I was doing that not too long ago, right?
Yes.
So that's cool.
Yes.
What a cool story. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how old are you now?
I am 27, turning 28 in November.
Okay. And you said you graduated college. What's your degree in?
Do you have time for that? I have business administration with a specialization in logistical systems and supply chain with a minor in marketing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She did some schooling.
A
What she's saying.
A little bit. So, hometown.
Born and raised, still living in Branchburg, New Jersey.
Okay. So, your home club would have been M&M?
There is no home club. Everything's hour and a half to 2 hours.
Okay.
And Joe Skull down at Cedar Creek is actually more my home club than anything.
Okay.
I do shoot at M&M quite often.
Gotcha.
Well, not too many people know that your family's also involved in competitive shooting. Can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Sure can. I have an older brother, about 3.5, 4 years older than me, who is a professional 3-gunner, which is the tactical use of pistol, rifle, and shotgun. He does about the same capacity that I do in regards to instruction. He holds a lot of clinics, and he's heavily involved in competitive shooting too, which is awesome.
That's awesome.
And he actually just got part ownership in the range that he's working at. So Double Eagle Pocono or Double Eagle Outdoor, I believe they're rebranding too. So he's there and working on the range up there. So if you ever do any pistol, rifle, shotgun, tactical use, he's your man.
I've seen some of your Instagram posts, and he gets it done now. Let me tell you,
he makes a girl proud.
Yeah.
Now, does your dad still shoot any or hunt any or?
Not anymore. He was more than anything before shotguns. Him and his dad actually did competitive 22 small bore.
Oh, okay.
Got into the shotguns because that's what we kind of grabbed into. And weirdly enough, when I shot iguanas down in Florida this past February, Dad's getting back into small bore again. So he is shooting again. Yeah, he wants to get back into 22 long range stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. So, Sean, real quick before I forget, I don't want to break away from you, Grace, but I did take Midway USA their pizza like we promised.
Yes.
You were supposed to buy, and I ended up buying and taking it to them. But that's okay.
It all came out of the dead pair account, so let's just be fair.
But the reason why I brought that up is because the gal that's working over there at the Midway USA Foundation, I didn't know it. They introduced me to it. She's 3-time Olympic gold medalist. She's 3-time world champion rifle shooter.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I was like,
That's cool.
That's
you
wild.
know, you just meet somebody. It's like, hey, how you doing? And then they tell me the backstory, and I'm like, really? Her? And they're like, yep.
So
I'm like,
cool.
wow. So, but no, that's what made me think of that.
And she's at a shotgun shoot.
She's at a shotgun shoot. She's
I like
working with
that.
Midway USA Foundation, and they're doing really good. They've picked up some new teams for their, help me out, Sean, what's it called? Their endowment program.
Yep.
So that's working well for them, and I love it. I love seeing
Well,
it.
it kind of makes sense to have people involved in that also be shooters because it's kind of like, one and the other.
Yeah,
Shoot rifles, shoot shotguns, try them all.
Yeah, but it's not, we kind of get, and Grace, you know where we're going with this. We kind of get engulfed in our own little world
Yes.
of sporting clays.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
But the Midway USA Foundation is more than just sporting clays, clay target.
Yeah.
It's rifle, pistol, it's all of that for the youth shooting. So
Right.
Yeah, I saw videos. I didn't get to go down and see it yet. I'm going to go tomorrow. They got 22 rifle and pistol going on too.
Yeah.
So that's a lot more. When I was in the SCTP program, that was a side fun event. It wasn't even really part of it. So it's cool to see it even expanding since then.
heck yeah.
Good deal. Well, Jason, you want to dive in and let's get serious?
Yeah,
or?
I want to talk about your...
Don't get serious.
All right, well, we never get really serious here. It's more of a semi-serious thing.
Let me back up. As serious as Sean and Jason can get with somebody like Grace.
Good correction.
But no, I do want to talk about your shooting journey.
Sure.
Obviously your dad has always been there for you, but did you have any other coaching along the way?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned Cedar Creek. Joe Skoll was a major part of my shooting blossoming, I would say.
Okay.
Being part of SCTP program, it's major fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
And once I felt like I was there, felt like kind of I was in a rut, but he saw me and recognized me, and he and my dad got along too, which is a little bit of a bonus. So I would go down to Cedar Creek like once a month for his monthly shoots, and he was like, hey, like who's your coach? And I had just at that point in time been graduating the SCTP. So I said, nobody. Why?
Yeah.
And he just kind of spoke my language. He was more than just a shooting coach. I felt like I could really go to him for anything, so it became more like a mentorship and
That's
kind
cool.
of like a dad 2.0 now, I call him.
That's cool.
So Joe Skoll's my main man.
So do you still see Joe every once in a while for a fresh up or?
Yeah, actually, I probably about not even, what's the date? June 5th and 6th was the shoot up at the state shoot up in New Jersey, and I'm kind of feeling myself a little bit in a rut, and I know it's just I haven't been able to be behind the gun as much as I usually am.
Right.
So he kind of got behind me. He saw me kind of seesawing my gun a little bit, especially on my FETASC mounts. Just reminded me a little bit of a quick refresh. It's never anything serious. It's kind of just like, hey, dum-dum.
Yeah.
What I've always told you.
Remember what I taught you years ago. Right.
Once you're at your level, it's those little fine tuning things, right? It's not like a major change or a major shift in something. It's just a little tweak here and there.
Little reminders.
Yeah.
So you were in the SCTP. How long before you actually went and shot NSCA registered tournaments?
I was always doing NSCA while doing SCTP.
Oh, the whole time? Okay.
Actually, maybe not the whole time. I don't think I even knew it existed till I was maybe 14, 15. So we just didn't know what all of the initials and the abbreviations and what's going on.
So did Joe get you into that, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So Joe being in a facility that hosts registered shoots, I kind of started getting out to there, and he told me about, hey, there's the regional shoots, there's the open, and I was like, wait, I thought I was going to those, but it was the SCTP. So going to the NSCA inevitably made me a incredible competitor because you're shooting all of the different levels of targets, and that's actually a lot of the advice that I give to the parents that say, like, how do I get it? How do I get them to the level that you got to? Like, obviously, whatever it was worked. And I said, shoot as much targets, all you can. Don't just stick to SCTP. Don't feel like you need to have a team to shoot. This is an individual sport. Go shoot all the targets you can when you can, especially on SCA.
Well, we see a lot of that because, I mean, there is an awful lot of kids in the SCTP, and obviously not knocking any of them, but the few that actually do transition in NSCA, like I'm thinking, Griffin Howe is one of the names that comes up to my mind. And it's like, those kids, I think, are going to be a step above everybody else because they're basically out there competing against the big guys, seeing the big tournaments, especially if they're traveling the circuit. They're going to the regionals, they're going to the states, they're going to some of the big blasts. And, there's no substitution for that kind of experience, right?
No, absolutely not. I actually, even like the Pazderskis I see who are traveling always at NSCA and SCTP, they're at the top of the SCTP for a reason.
Right.
They shoot at a lot of NSCA, they excel in the NSCA, and shooting that level of targets just increases your game.
Well, you're one of the few, because it's been talked about so much over the last few years, is there's that missing age bracket from like 22 to 32. Because, you take these young kids that come out of SCTP and they're on fire, and then they go to college and mom, dad's not paying for shells and tournaments anymore, and they go bye-bye. They come back to the game later in life. But you're one of the ones that's still there, and same goes for Joe Finizzi. He's in college, and he just won the national championship last year. He just won the Jack Links this year. So, I mean, he's still in it, still competing, but, it just makes you wonder how long is that going to last. But he's one of the very, very few, and you're one of the very few that have stuck with it.
Yeah, more the exception than the rule, for sure.
I would say half of it's you got to wanna.
Yeah.
So even if it does get a little bit tougher and things do get a little bit more expensive, you kind of just buckle down, tell yourself it's going to be all right, get as much help from the people around you as you can, and kind of just head down and carry on. It's definitely not ever going to get cheaper. Right. So we have to kind of acknowledge that, maybe rise to the occasion. And I wish that the parents sometimes weren't as involved as they are, because when they stop getting involved is when the kids kind of fall off. So kind of letting the kids, like my dad did, like, hey, I want to do this. He's like, well, what are you going to do to make it happen? Yeah. How are you going to make this continue to happen? Because daddy's not going to pay for everything your whole life.
Right.
And when you acknowledge the value of $1 fairly young in life, you start to realize how much it's going to cost you when you keep shooting this game.
Yep.
So I say you got to wanna, because when I graduated, that was when I kind of knew, well, getting close to graduating high school, and I was going to have to start picking up the bills. I kind of recognized that shooting was going to be where I wanted to go, and I couldn't do that just by having good scores. So being a good person, I was helping the youth a lot. Even though I was a youth myself, I still do. I love to volunteer my time to them as much as I can, and showing that passion and having the passion in general is usually what carries you, because you have to want to. This is way too expensive that if you don't really 100% want to, and daddy and mommy are just paying the bills, then when they're not, they won't.
Right.
Yep.
So let me ask you this, Grace. Do you think you or any woman for that matter, do you think you face more challenges versus what the guys do in the sport coming up?
I actually think I had a little bit of an advantage being a female, because all of the guys wanted to help me. So everybody wanted to be my coach, and everybody wanted to, here's what you got to do. Shoot this gun, shoot that gun. And I kind of I actually got a little overwhelmed when I was younger, because everybody wanted to help me, and here, shoot this lead and shoot that and try this method. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I almost had to, at a very young age, say, thank you for your help, but I have a coach.
Right.
Appreciate all of the input. Probably been doing this just as long as you have. and having that attitude a lot of the times, I feel like kind of helped with my, I would say, like, presence in the game, where it's not, she's just like this know nothing female. Is that
Right.
mean to say?
Yeah.
It's like, no, okay, she's got this. She doesn't need my help. Let me back off. But I think that it could be a disadvantage for maybe somebody that doesn't have the personality that I have. So
Sure.
I will definitely recognize that. You have to get out there.
Yeah.
Show your face.
Gotcha.
Talk to people.
So with that said, coming up through the NSCA to where you are now, obviously you've traveled a lot. You've shot a lot of shoots. You've pretty much seen what there is to offer. As another young lady coming into the sport, would you have any advice to them starting out now versus 15 years ago when you started? I mean, anything that's changed majorly in your mind? Or, I mean, we see a lot more female shooting now than ever. I mean, would you agree?
100%, yeah.
So if you've got a young lady that wants to come out and shoot, I mean, what would you tell her? Or what do you tell her?
I think it's important to remind any female, no matter their age, that they're not any less capable. So saying like, oh, well, I can't is like not allowed to be in the vocabulary first and foremost. Yes, you can, you will, and we're going to make it happen. But having a gun that fits, and that's why I'm going to kind of give my siren plug. I'm fortunate enough to work for a company that manufactures a firearm that is lady specific. So any young female, look for a lady-specific gun. That doesn't mean a shorter gun. That means a gun with a little bit of a higher comb, a little bit of a shorter grip, maybe the circumference of the grip, the length of pull in addition to all of that, and making sure that the balance isn't compensated, like a nice, sturdy, solid female gun. So you're not trying to make the gun fit you. You fit the gun. That in addition with some, and not just any instruction, maybe see who is shooting the way that you're shooting in the area that you're shooting, not just maybe like, I don't know how to word this, but look for a competitor themselves. Look for somebody that's a seasoned NSCA shooter, so they kind of are evolving with the game. So they're teaching you what's the newest tips and advice and all of that stuff, because there are some people that maybe haven't shot registered shoots in, let's say, 2010. I think the game's changed a little bit since then, and if you're not shooting it, you don't really know it. So I recommend a gun that is fit for you, a seasoned competitor that is your coach, and maybe even if it's not a competitor themselves, somebody that's out there in the industry. Like Joe, he's setting the targets. He has the behind-the-scenes view of the targets. That's why I trust him as much as I do, even though he's not a competitive shooter. He used to be. His eyes are fighting him a little bit. So gun, instruction, and just time. Put the time into it. You're never going to excel if you don't put the time in to improve when you're not at the registered shoots. You have to practice and put in the time. And outside of practicing, eat right. Work out, do your mounts, be an ambassador. I like to even just sometimes think about it's more recent, but think about even like articles that could maybe help others. Like, what can I be doing to help other people? And that's kind of why I am here now, because I never had that advice growing up. What do I do? And like you said about the NSCA and the SCTP, no one really even had a clear understanding, so I didn't even really know where to go. And it's a lot more, the lines are a lot more clear now, so it's a little bit easier. You just got to kind of ask. Everybody is so willing to help in this sport, and everybody's so accommodating that it's like your competitor could also be your best friend. So you just gotta that's surround yourself with the right people.
That's kind of what's unique about this sport. I mean, there's so many people out there that do compete, but they're friends and they're buddies, and they want to see everybody succeed. At the same time, they want to win and they want to do well. So that's kind of one of those, I don't know, weird situations in this sport. But at the same time, I think it's very cool.
But surrounding yourself with those type of people so it doesn't ever get toxic is huge for a big piece of advice. So like, don't just shoot with a good shooter. Shoot with somebody that's also willing to help you be a good shooter and not be mad if you are shooting good.
Absolutely.
No, that's good advice, Grace.
Good people to surround yourself with. Solid gun. I would say good instruction, and get behind the gun.
Do you think there's any merit to being a lady shooter? Is there merit in looking for a lady coach?
Sorry. I don't. Okay, I can't answer that because I've never had one.
Right.
I definitely have heard feedback from my own students saying how beneficial that is to just have somebody that is literally in the same wheelhouse as them. And is where they want to be. Say like, oh my God, I can do this. But being that I've never had a female coach, I don't think it ever hindered me. I do think there maybe could have been like an advantage. So instead of it being a dad 2.0, it would have been like a mom 2.0. But I can't speak from experience.
Well, that's not entirely true.
What's that?
Because you are one of Don Grant's pro staff.
Yes.
as we discussed on the U.S. Open podcast, and if you guys have not seen that yet, you can go see Grace's smiling face on our YouTube channel. But let's back up there a second. What convinced you to take Dawn's classes to begin with?
You have to convince yourself. Nobody convinced me other than my performance. When you shoot a...
But I mean, why was it like, you know what, I gotta sign on to Dawn's program? What was it that you finally said, I gotta do this?
I think when you hear the phrase 90% of this is mental enough, you go, well, what am I doing to invest in that 90%? You know?
Yeah.
And when you go from sometimes I just fluctuate so much in scores that I'm like, there's only one reason for that, because the equipment's the same. Everything outside's the same. It has to be what's going on the inside. So when you look at a big picture, it's kind of like you convince yourself. Nobody really has to convince you.
Right.
I can definitely say Joe probably recommended a little bit of brain training and a little bit of mind game stuff when I was way younger. And when you're a know-it-all 18-year-old and you say I don't need to, then you're not going to. But I told him, hey, listen, I think this is what I want to lean toward. And he's like, oh, you mean what I tried to get you to do 10 years ago? Nice job. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I was like, oh yeah, you did, didn't you? So when you say 90% of it's mental, what are you investing in that? And I started to invest.
Gotcha. And I think that's a good point, because we've seen a lot of people get started, especially like when the COVID years hit and there was people wanting to go outside, wanting to find something to do. And I think that's just a really important part of shooting. You don't know what you don't know.
Correct.
So it takes quite a bit of time to kind of learn the ropes, number one. And then depending on what your availability is to, are you shooting your local club? Are you traveling and going to your state shoot or your regional shoot? I mean, that all makes a big difference in somebody's level of experience and how fast they progress through the sport. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. Yeah.
So, I mean, do you kind of push new people to start traveling early, or would you say maybe the best thing to do is stay close to home for the first year or two until you kind of get the hold of the ropes and then move on from there? Or what's your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's a time frame. I think it's more the confidence than anything. When my students ask me what to do, I say go. Whatever it is, go. Gotcha. I had a student start shooting 2 years ago when he went to the Nationals last October. He's just dove in, practiced all he could, felt prepared. I said, do it. But if you don't have that time, it might take you a little bit longer. I would say if we're talking somebody that's looking to really get into things and is really putting in the time to practice, I definitely recommend hitting a couple of the local state competitions. Try to maybe look for the ones that are 2 days, because some are only 1 day. Mm-hmm. So look for a 2-day state shoot, kind of get your toes wet in that, so that you can see what it's like stamina and endurance-wise to shoot like 2 100-round events. Mm-hmm. Get some side events in and just see what it's like, and then just slowly but surely just expand according to your confidence. I don't say that there's really any time frame.
Okay. Because I know a lot of people are probably intimidated when they start talking. I mean, I know Jason and I were when we first started shooting, it's like, oh, the Ohio State shoot coming up. Are we good enough to go shoot that? Or the Northeast Regional's coming up. And we had those discussions, if you remember.
Absolutely. That was back in 19,
nowadays, we don't think twice about it. But back then, it was like,
Well, you do when you see the prices at the gas pump. But
well, okay. That's another topic, Jason. We're not going to go into that right now.
No.
But I'm serious. I'm saying, like, a new shooter could be a little intimidated about feeling going, to a big shoot, and it's like all those big names are there, and it's like, do I belong?
I look at them and go, question, do you know how the classes work? And they go, no. And I give them an idea of the categories, the classes, the concurrence, and everything that happens, and they go, oh, okay, so I'm not going to be shooting against you.
Right,
I'm like, well, you are actually, but you're not.
Right.
We're all against everybody, but we're somewhat categorized so that it's slightly fair. And I have students that go to their first ever tournament. I can think of one right off the top of my head, and he went to, I think it was the Seafood Blast, won first place in his class. He's like, Grace, I can do it. And I'm like, exactly. You weren't shooting against Anthony. You're shooting against all of the people that put in the same amount of time as you did.
At your skill level.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go back. Now you are one of Dawn's pro staff members.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what that means to be a pro staff member and how continuously working with Dawn, even though you've taken her classes and everything and all of her lessons, but you still continuously work on this week after week. What does that mean to be a pro staff member, and tell us why you continuously do that?
When I first started the program itself, I recognized a immediate change in the way that I approached things outside of shooting, which I went, wow, I would have never handled things that way before I thought about it the way that Don had me think about it. And then the more I started to practice it and think about it, the more improvements I noticed in not just my shooting, but my life. And when you just start very small and are already noticing improvements, it's really not that difficult to twist your arms to invest a little bit more time in it. I have a really fun time. I even have like a Dawn Grant notebook, like just for my classes that I take with her. And I'll go back to certain things and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah. And I could go back and rewatch all of the videos that, just like any other shooting lessons, you sometimes have to be reminded of the things that you've already learned. Like I said, Joe says to me, hey, dum-dum, you have to say, hey, dum-dum to yourself sometimes. Right. And I go back and I remind myself, and you start to get a little bit lazy, I would say, when it starts to work. So you're like, all right.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
So then you have to almost, proof is in the pudding, when you recognize your scores, you go, wait, what happened? And you're like, oh my God, I did not do as much Dawn training as I had been doing because I kind of got comfortable, just like practice. We're like, all right, I'm good. No, you're not. Keep going. Keep practicing it. Do everything you can, all you can, whenever you can. Just recognition of yourself in general, like she really encourages being calm and present, is so helpful in everything aside from just shooting. Yeah. So that's my reason. As much as it helped me in my shooting, it's helped me like in life, recognize a lot of things, clarify a lot of things, and I've had a lot of come to Jesus moments about like some of the things that I was maybe doing that wasn't necessarily helping my overall well-being, that I had to kind of take myself out of and look from big picture, like what can I be doing to improve myself as a human so then that can help my shooting. And I had to do some stuff.
Well, and recently I read your article in the Shotgun magazine about health and nutrition.
Yes, sir.
And so that's obviously a big part of your game. Mm-hmm. I think that probably the mindset 10 years ago, 15 years ago is not what it is now. People are taking this more seriously, and we're not doing the 6-pack of beer and a pizza the night before a tournament, because obviously that can affect you. We've had Joel on the show talking about your nutrition and making sure that you're eating right and being hydrated and all that fun stuff. So, I mean, with you, is it something that you've always done as far as your diet and what you eat, or is this something new?
No, it was not when I was younger. Actually, the reason why I chose shooting was because lacrosse had a lot of running and dance was too exhausting. And I was a little bit of a stocky young girl, and I said shooting is a lot less exhausting. And then the more I wanted to shoot, I almost like couldn't, because like my body would just get tired before I felt like I needed to be tired. I'm like a 17, 18-year-old girl, and I'm getting tired after 100, 150 rounds. I'm like, well, what can I do? And I went off to college, and I kept gaining weight, and I was like, what's going on? Well, you get a little bit stressed and things start to clutter on top of themselves, and I never even realized when I was in high school that trying to do dance, lacrosse, and shooting while being a student kind of got me to the unhealthy position that I was at, and I wasn't really concentrating on myself. I was distracting myself with everything else. And when I got to college, and I actually wasn't even shooting my first 2 semesters because I just went to school because I really wanted to go to school to be a good student, and I was gaining weight, and I'm like, what is going on? And I had a really good, her friend, my friend's name is Callie. She was like the fittest girl ever, and she was on the floor with me, and I was just like, what do I do? Like, where do I start? And it was just what went in my mouth. She helped me, smaller portions, the correct decisions, just like maybe when you're bored, go for a walk, have a glass of water instead of sit down and have some pretzels, or sit down and have don't bored do something that you wouldn't do.
Right.
So that was really how it started, was getting myself, like watching what went into my mouth and making myself just slightly more active. It was not, like I said in the article, it wasn't like, I want to be healthy, I'm going to start waking up at 5 a.m. and hit the gym. That was not how it started. I just wanted to do small steps to get to myself in the right direction. So I watched what went into my mouth, kind of started drinking a little bit more water, less. When you're in college, I definitely wasn't drinking beer or anything. So maybe a little bit less alcohol, because that doesn't really help with the hydration situation. And when you start to notice a really big difference after making small changes. You make another small change and even bigger changes happen. And now it's getting to the point where if, like out here, I feel like I'm getting my exercise just by being a crazy human and running all over. But if I don't like dedicate 20, 30 minutes a day to like making my body move and making sure that like that's my focus at that point in time, I almost feel sad. It makes me like it boosts my serotonin. It makes me less anxious individual. But I didn't realize that not doing it was the reason why I wasn't. So I kind of looked around and I'm like I said, the girl Kelly, I'm like, she's just like the happiest girl I know. And she'd get her serotonin boost at the gym, or she was huge into track. And I tried to get some exercise and it just changed my life.
That's awesome. Well, probably the biggest news with you is that you recently took a position with Caesar Greeny.
Yes.
And just as soon as we get back from this sponsor segment, you're going to tell us all about that.
Alrighty.
All right, joining us on the phone is Brian Holtkamp. Brian, how you doing this evening, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
We're
doing
good.
Great, man.
Jason's sitting here with me in the studio. We're calling you up to talk a little bit about Barepelt. But before we get going, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what class you're shooting in?
So, my name is Brian Holtkamp. I'm from Okeechobee County. Okeechobee is in Florida, and I'm a master class shooter, and that's about it.
Okay, gotcha. So let's go right into it, man. So you got a Barepelt vest. What made you decide to pull the trigger on one?
So, I bought the vest because I needed a new vest, and I also tried it on multiple other vests, but the Barepelt vest felt the most comfortable to me.
Gotcha.
So how long have you had it?
Probably say 6 months.
Okay, so you've had it for a good little while. You've done a bunch of shooting in it. What's your favorite feature?
My favorite feature is it's American made, and you design it the way you want it.
What kind of design did you have him do for you?
I got an American flag on the back of mine.
Sweet.
Very cool.
There you go. All right. So how was your experience with Barepelt? Did they take care of you?
Yes, sir. The customer service was amazing, especially Miss Heather working with me on trying to get my design perfect.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
Yeah, Eric married way over his head.
Yes, he did. He got real lucky on that deal.
Yes, sir.
So, do you have the competition or the competition light?
I have the competition vest.
Okay.
Gotcha. Does the heat bother you at all down there in Florida shooting in that?
No, sir. I actually believe that it's more breathable than any of the other vests I've had.
Gotcha. That's good. That's good. Well, they're definitely great vests and a lot of good feedback about them out there. That's for sure.
Well,
yes, sir.
I'm sure you run into a lot of people that are asking you questions and stuff about the vest. And if you had somebody that maybe they weren't quite sure if they wanted to buy one, what would you say to them?
So if someone asked me about a Barepelt vest, I would tell them they should get a Barepelt vest because it's the most comfortable vest I've owned. The customer service is amazing. It's also good with assistant. People are good with assistants at Barepelt, and they're good with design, and they're outstanding with working with you.
That's a very good answer. You said you're a master class shooter. I'm going to take it you shoot some FETASC every now and then, or maybe a little bit of AFS.
Yes, sir, I do shoot FETASC.
So that low gun mount, that vest, it doesn't hang up on your gun, does it?
No, sir, it does not.
Gotcha. Well, what's your next big shoot, Brian?
The SCTP Florida State shoot.
Okay. You do any of the major, like you're going to go up to the Trident Cup, or you going to do the U.S. Open or any of those down there this year?
I'm not 100% sure yet.
Okay.
I want to, but
well, if you're
not sure.
If you're there, Jason will be at the Trident Cup, and then we'll both be at the U.S. Open. So if you're around, look us up. We'll be anxious to talk to you.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, Brian. Well, listen, one last question for you. Hey, at Barepelt,
It's not just your vest, it's a new uniform.
there you go.
He got it.
Awesome.
Good deal, Brian. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the show. We really look forward to hopefully running into you down at a shoot near you real soon.
Yes, sir. It was a pleasure meeting y'all.
Yeah, our pleasure too, man. You guys have a great 2022 season.
Yes, sir. You too.
All right. Take
Thanks,
care.
Brian.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Bye-bye.
It's all about humanity.
It's time to react like never before. For the first time ever, RE Ranger used artificial intelligence to test and optimize 1 billion different lens variations. It's time to see the sport in a way no one else has with React AI. Available now in frame kits, lens kits, and our most popular lens shapes. For more information, please visit reranger.com.
All right, we're back. Now, Grace, we left off. We were talking about big news. You are now working with Caesar Guarini. Tell everybody your title. How'd that come to be, by the way?
So I have been super fortunate to be able to be a pro staff for them for 3 years. This is going to be my 4th year with them. And being that I just couldn't get enough of doing anything for them, I just love working the clinics for them. I love being a representative for them. They provided me the opportunity, if I would be so willing, to be their shooting promotions manager.
Nice.
Essentially, I get to kind of organize our staff because I am kind of out there and doing the thing and seeing everybody. It kind of made a little bit of sense. In addition to that, maybe get my toes into events that we've never really been a part of. Been trying to do a little bit better to cover the entire country instead of favor some regions, which we've accidentally just done because we've had them available in that region. And it's like, well, what about Colorado? Like, are there a lot of people there that are even able to shoot them? And it's like, well, no. So it's like, all right, let's maybe try to get a clinic out there. Let's get this going. Just random things like that. Colorado just came to mind for no reason. I don't even know if that's true. So I get to help out with the events that we've already been going to. What can we do better? Actually, it's a good time to tell anybody that if they feel like their area has been neglected in the Caesar Guarini, Siren, and Fab Arm world, that give me a shout. That's kind of what I'm looking to do, is spread our roots.
Heck yeah.
So does this mean now that you've taken your new position, are you gonna back off your shooting, or are you still gonna be competing at the same level?
I don't have to, because they are aware of the fact that it is kind of my life and my passion and my love, and they don't want it to take away from that. But I think it might be time eventually maybe for me to grow up, and I might have to slow down some point in time, but they told me that is up to my decision. It doesn't interfere, really. Part of being at the shoots is part of the job, so getting out there and talking to people and shooting the gun and getting people to shoot the guns is half of it. So if I'm not out there, then it's not very beneficial for me to be in the position I'm in.
Well, that's very cool they've got that attitude with you. That's great.
They're so good to me.
Good.
So, speaking of your shooting, what are some of your goals, both short and long term?
They're both the same, and it's to enjoy myself and give it all I've got. I really did a horrible injustice to myself when I was younger and tried to tell myself that you need to win every shoot you get to, and it gets super discouraging. So I take my wins as they come. I let my losses roll off the duck's back. That's all that it is. I remind myself, just like Dawn's training tells me to do, if I'm not having fun, I'm going to stop. Yeah. I like to just have fun. That's my goal. If I finish and I shot really crappy and I'm still smiling, well, then mission accomplished.
That's probably something a lot of shooters should take to heart, honestly.
100%.
Because we all take this game a little too seriously from time to time.
But you don't have I was just going to say, but you don't have make a Team USA goal or the Ladies Cup goal? Or...
My dude, that's always the goal.
Okay. All right.
I made it for the first time last year, and it was, I might even get choked up now talking about it. It was an accident, but it was the coolest thing that's ever happened to make the FETAS team.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, you're also doing some coaching. How's that been going for you?
Really busy, in a good way. I have the awesome ability to kind of not be stuck in one spot. So I get up to Mid-Hudson in New York a lot. Clove Spring and Wantage, New Jersey, in addition to coaching, they let me set their targets. So I get to kind of practice that, which is really, really cool. Joe Skoll down at Cedar Creek lets me instruct, and he's more the reason why I can set targets, because he taught me to. So I kind of will shadow him when I'm there. And then Anthony is really awesome about me being able to teach there when they're open. They're closed right now. It is not a joke, those bugs, man. It is actually insane how bad it gets down there.
I haven't been there yet, but I've heard the stories.
Yeah, it gets real bad in the summer, so now I understand why. But I try to jump around as much as I can when I can, so I never get bored. I always get Not always. I sometimes get lucky, and a couple of the private clubs invite me out, like member-only clubs. There's one in Pennsylvania, Blooming Grove. They have me out semi-annually. They have me out sometimes a couple times a year. There's a new one that, well, it's not new, but new to me, Flint Hill Preserve in New Jersey. They're kind of having me have some. We had one women's clinic, so it was really cool. We had about, I think, 13 women show up, and it's a fairly small club. So to have 13 of the wives and girlfriends and daughters and stuff show up was pretty huge, and a lot of that actually was because there was just a woman there, and I had guns available for them.
So is there a specific student you're looking for, like as far as an age group or an experience level, or do you pretty much take anybody?
I get excited about the kids and the women just because I know that the position that they're in, but because of the position that I'm in, being a seasoned competitor, I love teaching everybody from never shot the gun before to I'm shooting in 97, what do I do?
Okay.
So
Awesome.
I like to try and get a little bit of everything. You can't really get bored that way.
Well, if people want to get a hold of you for a lesson, what's the best way to do that?
If you want to, my cell phone number is on my website, but 908-963-4901. My website's www.gracecallahanllc.com. Last name Callahan. I take a lot of inquiries through there. My email is callahang.usa@gmail.com. I try to be pretty available as much as I can. My cell phone's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm pretty much teaching every day of the week as long as there's the place open. Right now, Tuesday's the only time. I believe Tuesday's the only day that clubs are closed in my area. So that's the only day I'm not teaching. When I'm not teaching, I'm doing my pro staff job with my shooting promotions manager, and I'm keeping myself busy as much as I can when I'm not shooting.
Well, we'll make sure and put all that contact info right down in the bottom of the podcast description. So,
Thank you.
If somebody's driving along and they forget about it, they can go right back to it.
I said it last time too, but just to give my brother a plug, if you ever, like we mentioned, are interested in any of the 3-gun, he does tactical use training at CallahanTrainingGroup.com. You can check that out also. He's in the Pocono area, like I mentioned, so we got a little bit of everything in the Callahan clan.
Well, you told me you listened to the show.
I do.
You're not getting out of here without doing some rapid fire questions. You ready?
Hold on. All right, ready.
She's getting her
Center yourself.
She's bracing herself.
Gotta get
here.
myself zen.
All right. So, gun, make and model.
Invictus M-Spec by Caesar Guarini.
Barrel length?
32, fixed.
Fixed choke.
Mod.
Nice. Ported?
Come on, no.
Okay. All right. I just had to ask. All right. Well, you took away a bunch of questions because you don't have chokes. So, factory or custom stock?
I have a custom factory, so it's custom through Guarini.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Shells?
You bet it's going to be game bore, baby. I
Atta
like the
girl.
Weichels. I shoot the 1 ounce, 7.5s, or sometimes when you need a little extra spice, I throw my dark storms in.
Okay. Never any 8s. Just stick with 7.5.
7.5s.
Gotcha.
I like her.
Yeah. I know you shoot a vest. Brand?
I shoot the Siren Castellani brand.
Okay. Gotcha. Glasses.
The Pila Outlaw X7s.
And ear protection.
You bet it's from Odo Pro.
Atta girl. See, there she's coming back. We kind of lost her for a second. She's coming back
in the
around.
groove.
Dr. Grace hooked it up.
There you go. So we do this thing called what's something weird you carry in your bag. We call it what's in your bag. So is it like a lucky rabbit's foot? For example, myself, I carry a rosin bag. Not too many people think about that. Hands get sweaty. Do you carry anything oddball in your bag that maybe people would not think of? No? Nothing at all?
I don't think so.
From that look, I'm guessing no.
I'm guessing she's pretty plain.
I
It's
keep
got
a sewing kit.
a sewing kit. Now, see, there's something odd she keeps in her bag.
I don't have one of those.
You ever had your zipper fall apart? It is like...
Well, see, we rock Barepelt vests. We don't have to worry about that.
Oh, so you never have.
We don't have to worry about that.
Okay, fine.
I got her.
You did.
I got her.
You did.
Lord.
Well, speaking of sponsors, I know you got something you'd like to thank.
Yes, I do. First and foremost, the company that I work for, I couldn't be more proud of. Caesar, Siren, and Fab Arm. They help me through and through. Game Bore. They are the best ammo the best ammo I've shot since I've started, 17 years now. I've got Odo Pro, like I mentioned. She hooked me up with some filtered earplugs for when I'm instructing, some solid plugs for when I'm shooting because I want to hear nothing. White Flyer has been incredibly gracious to me literally since I've started. They've got hooked me up with clays when I train on my own outside of the ranges. Try to keep it down to them in addition to the equipment. Then we have Don Grant, and that's pretty much my team.
That's awesome.
Gotcha. Well, it was awesome to have you in studio finally. Me and Jason have ran into you several times at several shoots and all that stuff, and it's always a lot of fun to talk to you. But, here it is, the grandiose Dead Pair studio in all of its glory.
You have no idea how excited I was to get here because I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to.
I know.
And then she walked in and she said, "Oh, really? This is it?"
I did not. I loved to see Jason vacuuming when I came in.
I can't believe that. I can't believe she got that on video.
Yep, somebody left some dirt on the floor with his muddy boots last time.
Yeah, and I got a hint, didn't I? I walked in here, Grace, and she could tell you. The vacuum cleaner is sitting in my chair with the cord wrapped around it. I'm like, I think this is a hint.
With a 5-foot circle of mud and dirt on the floor.
Right where he was last.
Wonder why I would have done that.
Weird.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird?
Well, hey, it was raining last time I came in here.
Oh, that's the other thing. If you want to watch the video of him vacuuming, check out Greeny Grace on Instagram.
Nice. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
High five. All right, there we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the edited part of the program. But it has been fun having you in, Grace, and I encourage anybody that wants to take a lesson with you to don't even hesitate, because if you think she's just fun and bubbly through the radio, wait till you meet her in person. She's always
right.
I said it last year. You could shoot her in the foot. She's still going to smile and go, "Hey, how you doing?"
Right.
So, but no, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, and you're welcome back anytime.
The pleasure was all mine, man. I really love chatting with you guys.
I'm going to make Sean buy dinner next time, so. But
no cheese and I'm in.
No cheese and you're in. What's your anti-cheese? You got like
super lactose intolerant.
Are you really?
Body hates
okay.
it.
Gotcha.
Body does not.
Got to know what your body likes.
Yeah, that's for sure. Until next time, thank you very much to Barepelt, Atlas Traps, Odo Pro, Game Board US, KL Ammo, Negrini Cases, Rhino Chokes, RE Ranger, White Flyer Targets, and of course, Folded Wing Apparel. Sean, what do we tell everybody every week?
Every week, guys, take somebody new shooting. Take somebody new to a tournament. Take somebody out to a fun shoot. And bottom line, just take somebody out shooting. Show them how much fun this sport is. Grow the sport. Get new people involved. And let's keep getting things better and better for people.
Let's see if she can rock it better than you do.
All right.
Grace, until next week.
What am I supposed to do?
She's got the blank stare.
What?
So you listen to the. We'll cut
You
this
can't
part
put me
out.
on the spot like that.
She must not listen to the very, very end.
You don't. You think I listened to this part? I'm listening to the next episode.
Oh man!
All right, I'll do it, Jason.
All right.
Until next time, we'll see you all back here on the Dead Pair Podcast.